It's just a good time to be a giant monster fan. We have an announcement for Kong Skull Island Netflix anime, Godzilla has a Netflix anime in April, and Pacific Rim just came out with a Netflix anime. What is it with Netflix and kaiju anime? Ultraman is getting a new theatrical release in Japan with his own ripoff of Shin Godzilla. And of course, not to mention, Godzilla vs. Kong, the next chapter in Legendary's Monsterverse. And of course, like every other Godzilla fan, I am super hyped, so I wanted to watch the original King Kong vs. Godzilla. And so I fired up my Criterion release of the US version, and I had a blast. While it's not perfect, I did super love it. But then I never realized, and apparently this was common knowledge and I had no idea, the Japanese version of this movie is on the supplements disc of this collection. And I had no idea because as far as I know, the Japanese version of this film has never ever been officially released in the US outside of this collection, which is a terrible crime, and I'm about to tell you why. Anyway, today we will look at how the US butchered this movie even worse than you remember. Let's take a look at what Toho apparently does not want us to see. But before we start, just in case anyone hasn't seen either version of this movie, let's break it down very fast. This is the Japanese version. Okay, so Boss Taco runs a pharmaceutical company that sponsors TV programs. Ratings are bad, but he learns a scientist found some magic red berries and rumors of an evil spirit on an island called Faro Island. So Taco sends a cameraman named Sakurai and a producer named Furue to the island to check it out. Before leaving, Sakurai visits with his sister, Fumiko, and her fiancé, Fujita, to find Fujita is going on a trip too. He made an amazing thin wire that is stronger than steel, and he wants to sell it. Meanwhile, an American submarine is investigating an iceberg that is somehow raising temperatures in the ocean. Eventually, they crash into it, and uh-oh, Godzilla is inside and attacks Japan. This gets Boss Taco angry because this pulls attention away from his piece on Faro Island. But don't worry, Sakurai and Furue find another giant monster, King Kong. They decide to bring King Kong back on a boat, but uh-oh, King Kong escapes. Then we see Fujita telling his captain that he is going to be getting off the boat earlier than expected. But uh-oh again, Fumiko reads a newspaper saying Fujita's boat sank and he might be dead. So she goes to Hokkaido to see if he is okay. Meanwhile, King Kong finds Godzilla and we learn that Kong doesn't have the might to take on Godzilla, so he runs away. Then we see Fujita coming home, but oh no, we thought you were dead, Fumiko is looking for you. Then we see Fumiko on a train, but it's getting attacked by Godzilla. Fujita saves her, then the military comes up with a plan to surround Tokyo with this giant electric fence until they figure out how to kill both monsters. It seems to work great against Godzilla, but uh-oh, electricity makes Kong stronger? Sure. Kong gets into the city, grabs Fumiko, then they use the red berries to put Kong to sleep, and then using Fujita's wire and some gigantic balloons, they bring Kong to Godzilla so hopefully they will kill each other. They tumble into the ocean and then Kong swims home. The end.
Everybody got that?
The American version is kind of the same, but I'll explain how it ruins the original. With all of that out of the way, let's get started. This is King Kong vs. Godzilla. The US version sucks. Part 1. The opening scene and main characters. Now, the opening scene of a film is very important. That first 10 minutes needs to hook you in, whether it be funny, action-packed, or scary. So let's see how the US version begins. So we are greeted by a classic Universal logo, some credits, yada yada yada. Then we get a look at a globe.
There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Okay. And we know there are giant monsters. That's why we're here. In fact, this is a sequel to Gojira and Godzilla Raids Again, so yeah, we're clear on that. Whatever. Maybe they'll elaborate and make the theme of the film more clear as the scene continues.
This is United Nations reporter Eric Carter with the news.
Oh, awesome. A news report about how the United Nations is dealing with earthquakes and other geological effects. How exciting! So basically, the American release of this film shoves in these new original scenes of this white dude explaining the basics of the plot to us. His tone, mannerisms, and deliveries are more boring than real-life news broadcasts. It doesn't feel like we're watching a movie. We're just getting a lecture about icebergs and these red berries, and it's so uninteresting. Not to mention, they throw so much at you in such little time. In this opening scene, we learn about 3 things that get almost the same amount of screen time. We learn about earthquakes in Chile, a cold channel of the ocean that has ice glaciers melting, and mysterious red berries. This is a lot of information to throw at you, and only 2/3 is relevant. As a first-time viewer, seeing as this is the first spew of exposition of the film, you would assume it is important. Sure, the ice glaciers are important, but do we need to know exactly where they are on the map? Also, why tell us about the red berries when you will explain them again in the next scene? And why tell us about earthquakes in Chile when they have zero relevance to the plot? It never comes back, it never comes up again, revealing the...
Free Infanta reporting via ICS from the UN newsroom in Santiago de Chile.
The Japan Current, sometimes called Kuroshima.
Planes have already arrived and are being unloaded.
Northern branch
The last recorded tremor was 4
emerged
hours ago.
This normally called Kuroshima. Stream is maintaining ocean stream is maintaining an abnormally warm temperature with its nuclear submarine. The United Nations has several of the world's most prominent scientists maintaining several of the world's most prominent
animals are fond of this fruit. The United Nations berries are ground into juice by the natives to placate a, quote, Japanese science god, Kira Makino.
Now let's jump to the Japanese cut. It opens on the same fake-looking globe, but there is a different voiceover.
毎時1670キロというスピードで回転を続けているのであります。
Okay, we know that too. Huh? It's a science TV show? That's why the globe looks like crap. Oh, I see what's going on here. This opening explains to us a lot of things. Our main focus that gets the story going is a TV producer who is tired of the boring programming they are being forced to air. As we continue on, we learn that ratings are down and this character we met needs a ratings boost. And while this scene does include information about sea levels rising that eventually move on to the sequence including the submarine, we are also getting information about this character who is important to the story. As we watch Boss Taco, we learn about his character. He flips a coin to make decisions, and he's also a goof because he messes up holding a phone correctly. This lends to seeing how and why this broadcast network is not doing well. Boring programming and incompetent workers. Needing something exciting for TV is what brings him to show us the red berries I mentioned. And the scientist showing us that it is rumored that the island contains an evil spirit, which of course turns out to be King Kong. One of the more humorous comparisons between these two openings is that the formerly mentioned boring science show gives us some of the same information that this UN reporter is telling us. Isn't it a tad ironic that in a scene originally about how science lessons are boring, you change the scene to a boring science lesson? As a matter of fact, in the US cut, why open on the Earth at all? What does this add to the movie? In the Japanese cut, it is a twist where we find it is a part of a bad TV show. Here, it adds nothing to the story, the themes, or an understanding of anything. You just as easily could have opened up on this establishing shot of the UN flag posts. Anyway, another thing that is important in monster films is getting to some kind of action. We don't need to see the monsters, but something with a bit of punch to get the action moving forward. This comes in the form of the submarine investigating rising temperatures in the Pacific Ocean. This is what gets the plot going. In the Japanese version, we get to this plot point about 4 minutes in, after learning about the problems this TV broadcast is having. That is in 4 minutes. We don't see Godzilla right away, but having this phenomenon shown to us instead of told to us is important for the beginning of the film. The US cut doubles that, and we do not get to the submarine until about 9 minutes in, and we still learn about the same information. In the US cut, we do have a scene with Boss Taco and how the TV ratings are down, but there is no creativity in how they present this. Not to mention the terrible writing for the dub itself. It's just so clumsy and thrown out at the audience.
Have you seen our latest TV ratings? They're terrible, because it's dull and boring and without imagination. That's why.
Now I need to make it clear, time is not the only difference between these exposition scenes. It is the information within and how it's presented. In the Japanese version, the science show tells us about the icebergs, and the taco scene tells us about him as a character. When the US version tells us way too much information, a lot of it not relevant, and a lot of it going to be repeated anyway, and tells us nothing about our actual main characters. The US version breaks the rules of filmmaking, that is show, don't tell. It's just voiceover and exposition and boring. It's funny I put up with this version for so long and just shrugged it off because I like the King Kong and Godzilla scenes. But now, finally seeing the Japanese version, I have a much bigger appreciation that this movie is actually pretty good as a whole. It's not like a masterpiece or anything like, say, Gojira or anything like that, but comparing it to the American release, it is definitely a marked improvement. And now, I can't see myself ever watching the US version again. And some may say focusing too much on these characters is not the point of this movie, that the human characters do not really matter and just fill time rather than have a 90-minute movie of monsters punching. That's fine if you feel that way and just want to watch monsters fight, I totally get that. But this human narrative in the Japanese version just creates a better film as a whole. I won't say every American added scene bothers me. There's a small bit that explains who Godzilla is and sets him up a bit, assuming most audiences in America in 1963 had not seen the original Godzilla, even though it did have a US release. But there could have been a better way to set it up than having a UN broadcast, or just don't explain it at all, because the origins of Godzilla don't matter that much in this story. The director of this film, Ishiro Honda, and his creative team looked at this movie the same way the world was looking at it. A punching match to see which monster is stronger. A famous boxing or wrestling match for the ages. That is why they went with this narrative. These producers, while silly, are only thinking about their brand and TV ratings and nothing more. This need for something exciting pushes them to an extreme of grabbing a giant monster, figure out the details later. It is a satire of television to do whatever means to be successful, even if it causes destruction. Even so, when Godzilla and Kong do meet, they place bets on who is going to win and give commentary to add to this film's light tone. Boss Taco, I would consider to be the protagonist of the film because he is the only one with an arc. By the end, he realizes his mistakes and lets Kong go, which the US version totally robs him of, but we'll talk about the ending later. Let's move on to part 2, the characters and structure. Now, while I claim Boss Taco to be the film's protagonist, he is not the one we follow for the majority of the story. That instead goes to Sakurai and his sidekick Furue, who go to Faro Island to find Kong. However, the US cut mostly excludes 2 characters who are important to the plot, and in the Japanese version, I would consider them to be more important characters than Furue. But I do have things to say about Furue. He is mainly just a companion to Sakurai, someone for him to talk to and give mild comedic moments. While in the American dub, they change him to this bumbling fool who won't shut up about his corns.
My corns hurt.
Ah, you and your corn.
But you see, my corns always hurt when they're near a monster.
But also a small change regarding the plot. In the Japanese version, they don't explicitly say a giant monster is on Faro Island, but an evil spirit. Sakurai and Furue are sent to investigate and document this quote-unquote evil spirit to see what it is. We then later discover it is Kong, and Taco orders them to bring the giant ape back along with them for publicity. In the American version, they immediately agree that there is a giant monster, and Sakurai acts like it is totally outrageous.
Does a giant creature exist here? My answer is yes.
A giant monster?
Dude, your country was almost destroyed by Godzilla not even a decade ago. Why do giant monsters feel ridiculous to you? Also, Taco sends only 2 guys with rifles to catch and bring back a giant monster? What was the plan? What are they supposed to do? In the Japanese cut, it was through happenstance and improvisation once they discovered the evil spirit was Kong. When they figured that out, you can see they made a makeshift raft from the island to bring him along. If they were going to this island to catch a monster, why didn't they have one made already? No giant cage, not a bigger boat, nothing. Anyway, that isn't the worst change to the plot that makes the US version worse. That goes to the characters of Fujita and Fumiko. Let's look at their introduction in the Japanese version. We follow Sakurai back to his apartment and look for his sister Fumiko. We find she is not there, but a few apartments down making dinner for her fiancé, Fujita. He is annoyed but realizes it is for a special occasion. Fujita has created a wire stronger than steel and is traveling the next day to look for funding to produce more. We learn a lot about these characters. Sakurai is protective of his sister, Fumiko. Fumiko is rebellious and does what she wants, and Fujita is clever and truly loves her. Now let's see how the US version handles this. We open on Sakurai having dinner with 2 people we have never met. Okay. Do they live here? Are they just having a normal dinner or anything? We still get a setup for the wire and we do learn the relationship between the characters, but they leave out a key bit of information. Fujita is leaving. In the US version, they do not mention it. Now, this is going to be confusing, but bear with me. This is Fujita's boat, and this is Sakurai's boat. In the Japanese version, we see them both. Later in the film, Fumiko's friend shows her a newspaper that tells her Fujita's ship had sunk. Look, there's a picture. This causes Fumiko to panic and go to Hokkaido to see if he is one of the survivors. Little does she know we have seen Fujita getting off the boat at a different stop. Then he comes home and realizes Fumiko is looking for him where Godzilla shows up. Comeuppance, and the audience is in on it because we were shown every step of the confusion. This is because we had a few scenes with Fujito and Fumiko where they talk about each other. In the US version, we have the dinner scene, then we do not see them again until the newspaper scene. So when this girl we have never seen is yelling about Fujita, some might scratch their heads and go, "Who again?" Also, and this is the big fuck up, remember I told you who was on each of these ships? Well, in the establishing shot of Sakurai being on his boat in the US version, guess which boat they show? Guess yet? If you said this green one, you're wrong. Yes, I'm not even kidding. They used Fujita's boat as the establishing shot for Sakurai's boat in the US version, which I'm sure as editing they just said, "Where's an establishing shot of a boat?" and just grabbed the wrong one. But the problem is, they also changed Fujita from being on a boat to him being on a plane.
Fumiko, Fujita's plane crashed. It's in the papers.
Which is fine, no big deal, but the human brain remembers things, and we remember Sakurai's boat looking like this in the US cut. But that doesn't stop them from showing the exact same newspaper. So in the American version, our brain sees this and thinks, wait, are they talking about Sakurai's boat sinking? No, they can't be. They just said Fujita was on a plane. Wait, who is Fujita? If Fujita was on a plane, why are we reading a newspaper that is clearly about a boat that looks like Sakurai's boat? Who's Fujita again? Because so much has happened in between these two scenes, not including Fujita and Fumiko in the US release, that we can't get a clear grasp on what is going on, and not to mention this image just throws us all off. I know this because I used to be confused during this scene, but the Japanese cut just clears it all up. Look, I would love to dissect these movies scene by scene, but the US version takes the structure of the original and throws it in the garbage. to make room for these boring newsroom scenes. It feels like they wanted to cut out as many scenes from the original as possible besides the monster parts. They just want to get to the monster fight as fast as possible and leave the themes and characters from the original film behind. Now, I'm not going to say the human scenes are some of the best drama ever or the most fleshed out characters, but the humans are integral to the plot. Fujita's wire is what gets Kong out of the city, and Fumiko, while mostly being a stereotypical damsel in distress role, makes a lot of the attack scenes somewhat more emotional because this is a character we have gotten to know. Not only about the character in distress, but other characters that care about her and the emotional weight behind their reactions. Again, you might feel that the characters are not likable enough to actually care about or get emotionally invested in, and that is fine if you feel that way. But my main point about this is that the original version of this film tried, when this one did not. And I admire trying rather than having scenes play out for efficiency reasons alone instead of trying to get us to care. Part 3, the ending. Alright, let's wrap this up. There's no major changes to the ending battle at Mount Fuji, and this of course leads me to the most famous controversy about this film. As probably all of you know, it was rumored for years that they shot 2 endings for this film. In the US release, King Kong wins, and in the Japanese version, Godzilla wins. Yeah, we all know that it is not true. But this leads some to speculate how this rumor came about. Most point out right at the very end of the different versions, we hear this. Having the US version end on Kong's roar and the Japanese version to end on both of their roars has been the prime piece of evidence for the source of this conspiracy. But I'm going to take things a little further. Let's back up a tad, starting with the Japanese version this time. Okay, so Kong and Godzilla roll into the ocean, we hear some shaking, and then Kong surfaces and swims away. But this leads our characters to puzzle for a moment on the outcome of Godzilla. They genuinely question if he lives, but seem to leave it open for Godzilla's survival to be probable, most likely to keep the door open for sequels. Now let's see the US version. Same thing, rolling into the ocean and... What the hell? Where the fuck did this flood come from? Both in terms of production and logic of the movie, what is supposed to be happening? Where did they get this footage? Apparently, Universal was dissatisfied with how the movie ended and used leftover special effects shots from Toho's The Mysterians. But it just feels so bizarre and forced. Why include this? It changes nothing, and none of the characters really remark on it. Anyway, Kong surfaces, and they say this.
Kong is swimming safely out to sea. No Godzilla.
That's wonderful. I hope we've seen the last of them for a long time.
Okay. Just hear me out. So the US edit is supposed to be more appealing to American audiences, and obviously Kong is way more popular in the States, especially in the early 60s. Now, I'm gonna make a little conspiracy theory myself, but I really get the vibe that the US cut deliberately made the choice to downplay Godzilla as much as they could to make it look as little of a stalemate as possible. While Toho has gone on the record saying that King Kong is the victor at the end of this movie, they also do acknowledge that the ending to most, as it's presented in the original version, looks ambiguous. So, I get the feeling Universal didn't want that, so they tried to make it look like no debate that King Kong is the winner, and there's no way that Godzilla won. There's no questioning of Godzilla being dead or not in the English version, with the exception of this one line.
I hope we've seen the last of them for a long time.
But even then, they swipe it under the rug so quickly and cut straight back to Mr. Snoozefest, giving us nothing else of value. No ending dialogue with Taco when he learns his lesson, nothing with Godzilla, and don't even mention that fucking flood that came out of nowhere, but thank God we know about the earthquakes in Chile. Sorry, why'd they include that? Anyway, this is where I think the confusion really came from. Sure, with the combination of roars being different, but with the rewriting of these very lines makes the difference. And these movies, side by side, are the perfect example of the most important rule in filmmaking. If it drives the story forward, leave it in. And if it doesn't, cut it out.